Hi, so I am making this video. Some of you have not turned in your final project for quarter 1. So, as a reminder, I'm going to show you an example of what I'm looking for. So, this is in the Culminating Project. This is the slideshow version of the project. So this is the slideshow that I shared with you in class when we were practicing the group project. So what I did was I took the slideshow and I added to it for the individual part. Okay, so this is my um, area. I did my research on the Arctic tundra in North America. Okay, so my presentation, I'm going to show you. This is the rubric. So the rubric for the group, individual project was there were 7 rubrics. This is the first grade for standard 3-1 is using these 2 rubrics. Okay, so you get these 2 rubrics divided by 2 is your score. So if you're looking for describing patterns of evidence to explain how plate motions lead to geographic features. So I asked you to tell me what geographic features you have in your arena, and then how can you explain how you have those geographic features? So how did they get there? Okay. And then the second section on that was um, the resources in your arena. What do you have the most of? What do you have the least of? So, and then how do you explain how they got there? What evidence or cause and effect relationships do you have that got them there? Okay, so what I'm trying to show you is on the first couple of slides. Those are the um, my slides for those 2 rubrics. So this is just the map. We did this already. So this is the map that shows where my area is. Okay. So I did the Arctic tundra, which covers North America, Europe, and Asia. And then these are my geographic features. Now, this is from my group project. I already had this on there. So what I did was I had this on my group project slide already. And what I did was I duplicated this slide, took out my pictures, and then I went and I did some research and I did my research on Brooks Mountain Range and tectonic plates. And so what I found was that the Brooks Mountain Range were formed by the movement of the Earth plates. And then the Earth's crust is made up of a dozen plates. Um, and then that's basically the limestone mountains. That's where they came from. And then I looked up glaciers and then what the plate tectonics, how did they form the glaciers? How did plate tectonics form islands? And then how my ponds and lakes are created from crater lakes are coming from the volcanic eruptions, and then bogs and marshes are from the aging process. So on this one, I just explained those geographic features um, that I mentioned were in my arena, in my area, and then I mentioned how they got there. What natural process, or what plate tectonics, or what natural process caused those things to be in my arena. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for that. All right. And then this next section part of that was I had a list of the most and least resources in my arena. And then I went and I found I did some research on the natural resources in the Arctic. And so I just basically got this straight from my internet research. And it talked about what the Arctic Circle, what resources are there, why they're important, to the land, and then which resources are the extraction of them, and why they're a challenge in the area. So that's just a little bit more information on the natural resources in my area. Okay, so that covers one of the standards. Okay, so the second standard is on the next section. So the second standard is 2-3, and that is 5 rubrics. Okay, so this is going to be the 5 rubrics. So rubric 3 talks about a model to describe the cycling of matter. So we know what a model is: a picture or a drawing describing the flow of energy among the living and the non-living organisms. So if you just give me a list, that's not going to be quite enough. Okay, so we're looking for a model. And if you draw a picture or you get a picture from the internet, that's fine, as long as you also explain the flow of energy. And I'm going to show you an example of that here in a minute. And then you also need to explain track the flow of energy through an ecosystem. Okay, how do you track the flow of energy? And then the pattern of interactions among organisms. Okay, just do you remember that? So we're going to, let me show you what I did on that one. So this is from the group project. This is just my list of living and non-living things in my area. Then this is also what I had, my food web for my marine animals, my Arctic marine animals. So then what I did was I had my food, my flow of energy. Remember the flow, the arrow points to the animal that receives the energy. So then I added, so I had my picture, but it doesn't tell me anything. So I had to add my list. I said the flow of energy was my title. The sun is the energy of everything. So we start with the sun. The sun feeds the producers, which is your tundra plants. The sun, with the other factors, air, water, carbon dioxide, soil, feeds the producers. The producers feed the consumers. The consumers die. They feed the decomposers, and the decomposers go back into the soil. So this is my my way of explaining the flow of energy. Okay, so I just need to know that you understand this. Okay, and that you can show it in a model and you can explain it. All right, that's what that means. All right, this is the pattern of interactions. This is that contestant challenge. So I'm going to use the same picture. Okay, the picture didn't change. That's not a problem. So then what I did was I said, okay, so I'm going to start with my tundra plant. And then I'm going to go, my tundra plant is eaten by the lemming. All right, here we go, right here. So that's predation. My lemming is then eaten by the jagger. That's predation. My jagger then is eaten by the Arctic fox, which is also predation. Arctic fox then is eaten by the red fox, which is also predation. And then the red fox is eaten by the wolf, which is also predation. So my contestant challenge would end with the wolf. Now I wanted the teacher to know that I also understand that predation is not the only interaction in an ecosystem. So over here, I just added that there's other interactions, and those are mutualism, commensalism, parasitism, and competition. It'd be nice if you could include those in your list here. That'd be terrific. I wasn't able to, um, but if you could, that would be terrific. I would like that. Okay, so then the next rubric that we are looking at are rubric number 6 and 7. So rubric number 6 and 7 talks about resources and how they affect populations of organisms. So when we did task 5, we talked about how removing key resources, and how is that going to affect the things in that ecosystem. So that's basically what the last couple of slides are about. Okay, so depending on how many you include is going to depend on the score that you receive. Okay, so what I did was I wanted to get a 4, so I chose to remove 2. So this slide talks about key resources. If we remove, and I picked 2 resources. So what I did was I went back to my list over here of resources. And I said, okay, well, I picked this area because polar bears are my favorite. So I picked polar bears as one of my resources. And then I'm like, well, what else? What other resource could I have? So I kind of like went over here and I'm like, okay, well, fresh water. Water is kind of a big deal. So I chose fresh water and I chose polar bears as 2 of my big resources that I wanted to predict what would happen. So then over here, I did if we removed marine animals or if we removed fresh water. So then I went in and I did some research, okay, on those things. So this is all about research. So then I said, if we remove the marine animals, then the polar bears would not have any food because the seals would starve due to not having any fish to eat. So it's cause and effect relationships. That's what we're looking for. Remember, that's the big science concepts that we're looking at. So if the humans in the area that live off of the fish would also not have the resources anymore. So the population of humans and animals that survive on the fish and the marine animals would decline due to the lack of resources. So remember, we're talking about just like the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution. If you don't have the food, then the population can't be sustained. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm getting at. Can you correlate one thing with the other? All right. So same thing what I did with the freshwater. I made a prediction based on what we learned in class. So if we remove the resource of fresh water, then the animals and the people that survive using the resource will not. The plants and animals need fresh water in order to survive. Plants and animals drink the water in order to sustain themselves. So fresh water could disappear if humans use too much of it without being replenished. Some marine animals live in the freshwater. So this would eliminate them from the ecosystem as well. So that is just 2. I used multiple key resources. I removed those from the ecosystem and then predicted what would happen if they were removed. So that's rubric number 6. Then rubric number 7 asks, how does resources affect a certain organism? So then I went and you can see I cited my resources because I got this information from the internet. So again, I picked polar bear, and then there was another, this is a shorebird. So there are 2 organisms that are their population is being affected directly because of the climate change in the Arctic. So what I did was this section is on the polar bear and talking about polar bears spend a lot of time looking for food, but because of the sea ice and the loss of sea ice, because of the climate change, they are they're a threat. Their population is going down because they are basically starving to death because they can't find food because they don't have any sea ice, which is what they use to they use the sea ice as basically a way to hunt seals. They use it as camouflage, and then they use it to kind of rest while they're hunting. So if they don't have the sea ice, then they can't get to where the seals are. So that's kind of how they use the sea ice, and that's why it's so important to the polar bears. So this is just some information about how the polar bears population is being affected because of the climate change and because of the lack of sea ice. And then I also I did multiples because I wanted that number, I wanted that 4. So I did more than one organism. So then I talked about the caribou and the shorebird population is decreasing as well because of the climate change as well. I found out that because of the warmer temperatures in the Arctic, that the caribou and the shorebirds are getting sick because they're not used to the temperature change, and there's more diseases and infestations, and there's more basically germs in the area, and they're getting sick on some of the things that normally wouldn't survive in that area because of the cold weather. And so their populations are decreasing because of that. So that's kind of what I learned on that one. So basically, the climate change in the Arctic is affecting these populations. And then this is my resources. So you can click on those and find the information. And then this is the rubric that will be graded. So hopefully that helps you. If you, this is my example. If you go to Google Classroom, you will find this all the way down into Unit 1, Culminating Project. There's Culminating Project Materials, and then there's the rubric, one of the rubrics, and then here's Culminating Project Work. In the Culminating Project Work, this is the independent project template that I gave to you, and then there's a couple of templates here. All right, so there's the project template, and what this is kind of a condensed version of what I did. No, this is basically the template of what I used just now. And what it is, basically, it's showing you exactly what I'm asking for. Okay, so what I just showed you is exactly what is here. So you just take out what I've said and then add your own thing to it. Okay, this one is the brochure. And what this one is basically the condensed version. So what you would do here is it's just a smaller version of what I just shared with you. Okay, so it's obviously you're going to have the same information. You're just not going to have as much room to put all of the detail in. Okay, so it might be a little bit harder to get that A using this section, but you can add pages if you really want to use this tactic, but that's really up to you. Okay, so if I will go ahead and put my sample in here for you, but a lot of people haven't turned it in, and that's kind of a big deal. So that really will affect your grade. So hopefully you can figure that out. If whatever you've done that goes with the evaluates is basically what is in here. Okay, so anything we've done with evaluate is what goes in here. Now, at this point, if you can't find your work from quarter 1, or if you think you need to start again, or if you just want to pick a random place and just do a project, at this point, I'm fine with that. Just as long as you're following the rubric and you have what I need you to have, just get it done. Okay? If you need any help, just let me know. All right? Good luck and get that turned in.